Hi everybody, it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. Well, here we are again. I'm happy to say that I am in my new home office. I'm really happy with it and I have a lot of storage for all my toys. Today we're going to talk about sensory needs and specifically about the olfactory sense, which is our sense of smell. Let me ask you some questions. Does your child smell stinky things and seem to enjoy it? Does your child really enjoy the smell of his own armpits or her own feet? Does your child sniff the trash or the dog's poop? Or does your child seem to enjoy any scent that is really strong and pungent? These can be signs of a need for more sensory input to the olfactory sense, which is your sense of smell. In this video, we're going to talk about how to provide more input to our olfactory sense, which is the sense of the body that deals with smell, that processes aromas. We often talk about kids as being either sensory seeking or sensory avoiding. The truth is that kids and all humans are usually a mix of both. Sometimes we avoid certain textures or certain smells or certain feelings on our skin. I don't like scratchy sweaters. I don't like socks where the seam is hurting my toes. However, there are some sensory inputs that I crave. In my personal body, I crave that sense of deep pressure. I crave some textures that I kind of, like the hem on this shirt, I kind of rub it when no one is looking or when I think no one is watching. These are some sensory inputs that I avoid and that I crave. So none of us is completely a sensory seeker or a sensory avoider. We're all a mix of both. We just have to figure out for our kids which things they crave and which things they want to avoid, because we have to deal with them in different ways. In this little series on the 9 sensory modalities, I'm going to talk about things that our kids might crave, things our kids might seek and want more of to function at baseline, to feel a sense of equilibrium and calm. And the first sense we're going to talk about is the olfactory sense, as I mentioned. If kids need more olfactory input, they are going to want more things that have a strong smell to them. So we need to set up a system where they're getting more strong aromas in their daily life. But we don't want to do this with artificial perfumes or with weird artificial fragrances. We want to do this in as natural a way as possible. So here's where I need to talk to you about a sensory diet. If you've watched my videos for a long time, you've no doubt heard most of this in various different ways, many different times. But since it is a brand new year, happy 2023, I figure we can afford to reiterate some of the more important points when it comes to helping our kids stay calm and regulated so that they can learn and engage with the world around them. And the sensory system is the first thing that we need to keep calm in order for our whole selves to be regulated. Okay, so a sensory diet is where we take inputs that our kids need more of and we purposely provide them throughout the day in specified amounts. Just like how you have a hunger appetite and you choose to have meals throughout the day. I'm assuming you don't just graze throughout the day. I have known at least one family that did do this and they were not very healthy. They never got full. They ate all the time, but because they didn't ever activate their stretch receptors in their stomach, they never actually experienced satiety. We want our kids to get very large chunks of sensory input at regular times throughout each day in a way that will help their sensory system feel full. So that is what we want to do. If your kid has any of the symptoms that I mentioned earlier, sniffing weird stuff, always looking for strong aromas, then we want to arrange some olfactory input during our kids' sensory meals of the day. I'm assuming your kid is going to have more than just the olfactory need, and as the videos go on, we will add more of those pieces into our sensory meals. But first, let's talk about some of the things that can meet this need for olfactory input. Filling the day with a bunch of aromas is a great idea, and that is what I am talking about now. And then we're also going to talk about a few little activities and games we can play during the sensory diet time that will be enjoyable and that will help meet these needs also. I have some tools with me today. The first one is a candle. This particular one is a little warm. This particular one is scented. I almost said flavored. Do not eat. This one is scented with essential oils. So this one has peppermint and some vanilla in it. It smells delightful, and I think it's a good idea to maybe light a candle during your child's sensory time, a candle that smells good. I will link this particular one down below. They also have some that have different essential oils in them. You can do your own research. I recommend making sure that you get a lead-free wick and making it of maybe some kind of safe wax. There are some that are fair trade coconut wax, things like that. Just maybe save the bees and don't steal their wax. This one is by a brand called Awaken, and they're my favorite because they come in this really pretty amber glass container. I can actually show you the label. They are not a sponsor, but you know, if they want to be, they should feel free to join me because I really do love their candles. I also give them as gifts, and I have them in multiple rooms in my house because I like how they smell and I like the ambiance. It's very nice. Another option is this little ceramic tree. I have a variety of different ones. I have some lotus flowers in the same material. I have a sunflower. I think this tree is my favorite because it doesn't take up very much room. It's a little ceramic tree on a wooden base. And what you do, this is called a passive diffuser if you haven't seen these before. So you take some of the essential oil and you drip it onto the tree. And then the tree is going to give off just small amounts of that fragrance all day long. I usually only fill them up every couple days right before we have guests over so that the house doesn't smell like cat litter and feet or whatever houses sometimes smell like. So that is a really good option. I'll also put a link to this down below. I love it. It smells so fresh. You can also use the fluid diffusers should you choose to. I had a whole bunch of those. The motors all broke after a very short amount of time, so it started to seem very wasteful to me to continue to buy diffusers that would shoot the air through them when instead I could just buy this passive diffuser. My favorite scent is peppermint, but I also in the fall and winter like to, well, this is not the one I normally use. This is sweet orange, which actually doesn't have quite the strength of smell that I think you're gonna want if your child needs some serious sensory input to the olfactory sense. But I have one that is called Germ Shield or something. I will link it in the box below. And it smells like cloves and cinnamon. It's really delightful. And in the winter, I like to mix the peppermint and the Germ Shield together. Not only might it, there are some studies that show that it actually does help clean the air a little bit from germs, like it captures them or something, but also it smells warm and cozy and wintry. All right, that's that option. Another thing we can do is we can cook with spices. This is Italian seasoning. Smells like basil and thyme and oregano. It's delicious. You can also, of course, make little sachets of spices and put them in your kid's pillow. You got to make sure it's a smell that your child actually likes. Cook with spices, make little sachets of spices, maybe even put some in your kid's backpack or in your kid's shoes, just to make the day a little more interesting from an olfactory perspective. Of course, we also have cinnamon, one of the best smells in the universe. And my other favorite, this one isn't even open yet, but almond extract. I love the smell of almond extract. If I could smell like anything all the time, it would probably be matcha, which is green tea, and almond extract. Someone make me a perfume that smells like that, please. So far, I've had no luck finding it. Those are some ideas how to scent your child's day. Now let's talk about what do we do during the sensory diet time so that we can add the olfactory sense into that. One way is to play this little game. I have some little board maker pictures here. I smell, and I just have a few pictures on here because I wasn't doing a huge game with this. This was just kind of a little language activity that we were doing. I brought secret smells to my client's house and we played this little game. So she had to close her eyes and I would present her with something to smell. And then she would practice saying, I smell peppermint. I smell banana. And it was a very fun game because she got the sensory input and we were working on communication skills at the same time. And as you may or may not know, I am a speech language pathologist. So communication is my deal. Communication of all kinds, whether that is actual speaking, whether it's visuals, whether it's gestures, whether it's behavior. Behavior is also communication. And I don't talk about my qualifications enough. Most of the time I just come on here and share with you some nuggets of knowledge. But I am a speech language pathologist. I have been practicing in my field for over 20 years. I know it's shocking, but it's true. I have worked in public schools, private schools, a clinic, families' homes. Where else? I worked in a hospital for a very short amount of time in one of my rotations in graduate school, and I did not enjoy it, but I did gather that knowledge up and store it in my mind. Most recently, I've been working in churches to help them develop supportive systems for the kids that they serve who have different developmental needs. And I wrote a curriculum for churches to use to teach these kids who have different developmental needs, because church people are church people. They're usually not educators. I am both, so I can help. You can also do art with different smelly things. You can do rubbings if you can go out in your yard or at the park near you with your child or by yourself, I guess, and bring it home. Get some pine needles, get some anything that has a good smell to it. Pine needles are probably the best that I can think of in my vicinity. And then come home and do a rubbing with them. So put a paper, put the pine needles, put another paper over the top, hold a crayon sideways and rub it like this over the pine needles. It will make a beautiful pattern. You can also make cinnamon ornaments. I'll put a link to my favorite recipe. I've done this a lot of times. The kids always love it. It leaves my classroom smelling delightfully delicious. You take a bunch of cinnamon, you take some glue, Elmer's glue or some kind of school glue like that, and you take some applesauce and you mix it all together until it makes a very smooth dough. Then you roll it out and you cut shapes out of it. I usually have done this at Christmas time and I have made ornaments out of the shapes, but you could do this anytime and use them as room decorations to make the room smell good. You can use them in your car as a car freshener. It's just a great idea all around as a project you can do that has a lovely smell to it. You can also involve your kids in cooking, especially if you use fragrant things like spices, herbs, onions, garlic. Those kind of things make such a lovely smell. Cutting fruits and vegetables is a great idea. Of course, use a child-safe knife if you need to, which you probably do. Grinding stuff up in the blender is a great idea. Just get as many olfactory inputs into your child as you possibly can. Get in the idea of thinking, does this have a good smell to it? If so, let me involve my child, because my child seems to need a higher level of smells in her life than someone else does. Every kid has different needs. Every human has different requirements. And the better we do at building a foundation of meeting those needs, the better a person will function in the world. I always think in my head of unmet sensory needs as a kind of itch that a child can't scratch by himself. He needs somebody else to help him scratch it. Sometimes if he's having an unmet olfactory need, he might smell his own poop, like smell it up close on his hands. Or he might love to sniff people's shoes, things like that. That's because of an unmet need, but we can pay attention to that signal and we can meet that need in a more appropriate way. And that's what I hope to share with you in this series. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be back soon with the next video in this series, which will be all about ideas to meet a whole different sensory need. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye. Ouch, I just hit my sore ankle on the chair. That's the ankle I had surgery on, and I hit it right on the scar. Whew. Okay, sorry about that distraction. I have now recovered.